Hello, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of Phantom of One with me, Martin Leon. Hope you're doing well. I'm trying to be more consistent with my podcasts. So I think I did not spend that much time between recording this one and actually releasing it. So yay for me. Just as a reminder, you can follow me on the socials at MintOnRL on Twitter and Instagram. I'm also on Facebook as Martin Leon Stand Up. And I think that, if you want to listen to my Spanish podcast, Este Podcast Salvará al Mundo, there should be a new episode of that one coming out soon, and there's also Fantastic. My co-host right now is in Monterrey, and she had to deal with a hurricane, so we didn't record last week. But I hope the phone probably did pick up that. Anywho, got a friend request for some reason. I'm getting a lot of friend requests, and I hate getting friend requests on Facebook from people that I don't know or that know someone that I know. I wish there was an option on Facebook that I could ask them, why do you want to be my friend? Like, seriously, why are you here? Anywho, remember how I told you I wanted to use a podcast to, talk about the things I've been watching? Talk about media and stuff? Well, I haven't been watching much, to be honest. I haven't been in a series watching mood for a while now. I will watch a lot of YouTube videos and stuff. Jimquisition, one of my faves. And I've been watching a lot of Markiplier, who's been getting back to Minecraft. That has been fun to watch. I guess it helps me just fall asleep. And I feel bad falling asleep to a Final Space or something. Because I have been watching some Final Space episodes and some BNA, which is an anime on Netflix, BNA. And by some, I mean one episode of BNA and 4 of Final Space. Which are funny, and I want to watch more, but I have, I don't know. Again, I'm not in a series watching mood. What even is a series watching mood? I don't know. I guess I'm waiting until I can watch them with someone by my side. I don't want to be alone. I've also been watching Nadia's Time to Eat. If you don't know Nadia, she's a British cook, chef, cookbook author. She was in the Great British Baking Show, and she has this Netflix show called Nadia's Time to Eat, which is all about easy cooking and kind of having hacks for making tasty recipes. And I saw this one, which was a beet pasta sauce. And I'm like, I can try it. The recipe in the show asked for a blender to blend the beets along with some garlic and olive oil. And I was like, I can do it. I don't have a blender, but I have a food processor. That's kind of the same, isn't it? And it's not kind of the same. It didn't work at all. It doesn't have the same texture as the one on the show at all. It doesn't taste bad. I like beets. If you like beets, it tastes like beets. It's good. I might have gone a little bit heavy on the garlic, but I live alone, so who's going to complain? No one. My cat. Anywho, so yeah, that happened. But it was good. I mean, it's good. I made it literally a few hours ago. And what else? I also made a mango coconut bread at 1 a.m. in the morning, which turned out to be really good. And and also ordered, if you're in Mexico City, I have a friend who has a Instagram page called The Bookery. And it's about making treats based on books. And now he's been selling some baked goods because he's moving and he needs the money. So if you want to try some chai rolls, which are really good, I recommend him. He also bought some blueberry pies, which were really good, and some bread pudding, also really good. Highly recommend. I've also been doing shows with friends in Spanish. I hope you can't hear the child crying from far away. But if you can, there's a child crying from far away in my apartment building, and I'm sorry you can hear him. But hey, if you want me to improve my recording conditions, you can always subscribe to my Patreon. which is at mintonerl too. It's patreon.com/mintonerl. I got a microphone as a gift. I just need a console to plug it into. And if you hear that, that's my brother texting me. Anywho, but you can subscribe on Patreon, or you can help me at Coffee. Coffee, same Mint on RL. You can see all of my links at my website, martinleonstandup.com. What was I saying? Oh yeah, I have some stand-up comedy shows in Spanish. One of them this Friday. We're finally doing them live. It's on the Facebook page Ten Comedia. It's gonna be at 8 p.m. on Friday. So if you want to watch that show, we're trying to like bring up some new stuff every Friday. So yay! Hopefully you can be there. Anything? I think, is that it? Yeah, I think that's all I had to say for this intro. I hope you enjoy this interview I have with Lacey McLaughlin. I met her through stand-up comedy, and she's really good. She's one of these people that, she'll tell you like, I'm gonna do this, and you're like, okay, and then like 2 seconds later she's doing it, which I find which I admire a lot, because I will say I'll do something, and like 3 months later I'll start planning on doing the thing. So hopefully you will find her as inspiring as I do, because she's now she now started to write a book, and her Instagram stories are all about writing. I don't know, I find that to be like super, again, admirable, because like, I don't know, I don't tell people that I'm writing. I'm just like, what are you doing? Nothing. But I try to write. Try being the key word in that statement. But she's really cool. We talked about how she got into stand-up, how she ended up in Mexico, and more about what she's doing with her life now that she's quarantining in Playa del Carmen. So, hope you enjoy it. Do give her a follow on the socials. I will give you those. I swear to God, I don't get messages the whole day. Like, it's Sunday, my phone's been silent for most of the day. I start recording this in 8 minutes, I get 3 messages. Like, what's up? Anywho, here's Lacey. I will see you on the flip side. My podcast. I'd like to start by asking you to introduce yourself to I think now there are 7 listeners.
Oh, okay. My name's Lacey McLaughlin. I'm a writer, technically a copywriter, and right now I'm based in Playa del Carmen, but I'm from Florida in the U.S.
Okay. Yeah, I did want you to tell that story, how you ended up in Playa del Carmen.
I had to evacuate for the pandemic, and I wanted to, my lease was ending on March 31st, and I had planned to do 3 months of traveling. I was supposed to go to a wedding in France, and I had like a wedding in Boston, and was going to go see family, and I thought, you know what, I'm just going to travel. And clearly, right before my lease was ending, I realized that was not going to work, and I needed to find somewhere else. And it was like, I just thought, I don't really want to be in a city with a lot of like air pollution with millions of people. And I kind of envisioned like, I'm just going to escape to the beach. I'm going to walk on the beach every day. Like, I'm going to like beat the system. Like, I'm going to, go somewhere I can really enjoy. But the truth of it is the beach hasn't been open since March. Yeah. It means people are like sneaking on here and there, and some places are more lax than others. And there are ways, but it hasn't really been. I think basically in quarantine, everywhere is the same. Like, nobody really won that.
I think you did do a smart move in going to a place with like less people and less air pollution, less sound pollution.
Yeah.
So I think on that front, you did good.
You know, my building, there's like a pool on the roof, so that's made up for a lot of.
And the other thing, because I met you through stand-up comedy.
Yeah.
You arrived and you almost kind of immediately started, being awesome at stand-up. So how did you end up like how do you end up like finding the inappropriate laughter and the whole thing?
Well, it was one of the first things I came to in Mexico City. I was strangely like cast as an extra in a Burger King commercial when I like the first week I got to Mexico City. Like some guy came up in a coffee shop and was like, "We need like gringas. You want to be in a Burger King commercial?" And I was like, and he was like, "We'll pay you." He's like, "It pays $100 and we'll like send you an Uber." And I was really like broke at the time. And I was like, "Sure, I'll do whatever you want for $100. Like, you want a lap dance? Like, I'll do it." So I got there. It was not 4 hours. He said it would be like 4 hours. And I was just, like, no, it was, I think it was like 14 hours. And, but it was cool. And I met someone who was in the stand-up thing. He invited me in. I don't know, that night, like, I actually met so many cool people. I was, pretty new to Mexico City, and I just met, like, it was like a cool group of people, and I think I plugged in, but it wasn't until January. So that was like last July. So it wasn't until January till I actually like got the guts to try it.
Yeah, because you're like very methodical. I feel you wanted to like prepare for success.
I hadn't really thought of like getting up on my own, to be honest, but I think I heard that like Michael was looking for people, and I'd mentioned, like, it had always been in the back of my mind, like something that would be cool to try. I mean, I love like female comedians. I think they're the shit. So, I thought, why not just try it? Because really comedy like is just writing. If you can perform your writing pretty well. And I've always tried to be like kind of humorous in my writing, but I've never really performed it. But it was a very like cool experience. I think everybody should try it once.
And how did you find that difference? Because like because you do write like with a humorous with humor, but how do you find like writing the humor versus performing the humor?
I think it taught me a lot about brevity, because even in my writing I could get a little like long-winded, and I mean, you're supposed to like kill your darlings, and I've always tried to write like tighten it up, but I mean in comedy it's really like boom boom boom, like there's a cadence to the way you deliver. And so I started listening to like, I mean, I was listening to like every podcast. I was like, I had comedy on in like a loop, for weeks, just to get like the delivery of how they would say the jokes and like the cadence, the build up. I think there's a lot of the way that you could say a sentence like literally 5 different ways.
Literally.
Based on like how slow you say it. And that was really fascinating to me. That was really fascinating that like some of the, I guess Mitch Hedberg is like the person like everyone always points to, like that it was just delivery, pure delivery, like the way, but there's a lot of comedians like that where maybe if I tried to say their jokes, I would be terrible at it, but because of who they are and their personality and the way that they say it. And so I realized like it's really kind of this expression of you. When you're performing comedy, you're really performing like yourself, like your text, your nuances, like the way you say things. It's just fully you. You're not cast in a role, which is why I did so terribly in the Burger King commercial, because I was like, what do you want me to do? How do you want me to act? But when I'm able just to like fully kind of be myself, but like make fun of myself as well, I think like the self-deprecating part of it, it's cool because you're like playing the character of yourself.
Yeah. No, and I loved your first comedy set, because like on the one hand you went to a place where it's like on like quote unquote common, which is like dating, because like
everyone dates, but it was so personal. It was so about your personal experience, or not only with the whole digital nomad thing, but also like a foreigner dating Mexicans and the whole thing. That it was like it was a common. It was very relatable, but at the same time, it was like so very very you. So that I loved. And the thing is, like, I love talking comedy with you because like a lot of people don't like to discuss like the nitty gritty of comedy. They just want to be like, it's jokes, it's fine, like stop.
No, there's so much to it. So, I mean, it's such an art. It's like a science, and I mean, you taught me so much of what I know. So,
Stop. No, continue.
you know,
Stop.
but it's so good to like cross train as a writer. I do copywriting right now. I'm working on a novel, so I'm writing fiction, and I'm just, you know, even writing comedy. You know, I was reading books at the time on like how to write comedy, and I mean, even if you write like tweets, you know, like all of these things are like different forms of writing, and it's like you kind of cross train, and it's so good to dabble in different, like, you know, like in different writing formats and themes.
Yeah, I did want to talk to you about the writing thing, because I've been seeing on your Instagram that you always have like a pen in hand, or you're always saying like writing, and I'm really really jealous because like whenever I say I'm going to write, and what I mean is I'm going to be watching YouTube for the next 2 hours. So how has the so you're a copywriter, you're working on a novel, you say?
Yeah.
That's
kind of been a surprise. I mean, I think everyone's like working on a book now. Like if you say you're like, everyone's writing a book, but I've never written fiction before. So this is kind of new. I never thought I would either, because I had been working on like more of like a memoir, like kind of these short stories about like spiritual awakening. And I just like, there was just something I wasn't getting to. And I don't know, like the first 2 months of quarantine, honestly, like I was just like so emotionally exhausted, and just trying to figure out what was going on. Like I was pretty addicted to the news, and I just couldn't get like any distance away from like I wasn't feeling very creative, and I was feeling really sad too, because I really felt like comedy opened up a whole new world for me. And I had just started in January. I'd only had 2 shows. Like I was supposed to be like, through this trip, I was going to be traveling all of April, May, and June. And I was going to be doing open mic nights in the States. And I was already like signing up for them. And, you know, like some like smaller shows too. I was looking at performing, and we had a show coming up that I was like working really hard for. So that was
gonna be
honestly like
which is gonna be like your last show in Mexico before you went on this like.
And I was like, man, I really want to get up there more, and I just like, I want to do this. I want to like go all in, like not like I'm going to be a famous comedian, but I really thought this, like I want to be a writer. And as I learned about the career of so many comedians, I realized like they're working on like sitcoms, and they write, you know, for television and film. And I thought, oh, that would be so cool. So for me, it was never like I want to be like a famous comedian, but maybe if, you know, I can get my work out there. Because what I loved about comedy is that you get like instant feedback, you know. Like with writing a novel, I feel like it's like a very solitary act that I do for a very long time. Like a lot of hours go into it, and then, you know, at some point I'm going to have a finished product, and then it's like, here, now it's ready for the world. And it's just such a long process before people actually get to see or like experience your work if you write a book. But comedy, it's like you could get up every night, and you could like, you know, you could literally get feedback from one show, and then like the next night you could try out new things, and you could like, just, I thought that was so cool, because I was like, oh, you know, writing can be so like depressing sometimes, because you have to wait so long, and then you have to like convince people to read like what you've written. And like comedy, it's not like you have to convince people to come to the shows, but like normally, you know, it's not as hard of a sell, because it's like more of a social thing. So like it doesn't require anybody to do work to like come sit and have a beer. Like it pretty much doesn't. Like, but reading, it's like, read my novel, sit down, like give me your undivided attention, like get off social media. It's a lot to ask people. So it's pretty, I feel like I just kind of grieved. Like I was like, okay, well, that's not going to go the way I thought it was. And even exploring like online stuff, like you've been doing a great job of that. I just didn't have it in me. Like I was just processing so much, and things that used to be funny didn't feel relevant. And I just like missed that. And I, even now, like I miss having that outlet, but what, and I didn't feel creative. So I started reading The Artist's Way, which I've done a few times. And it's just like, you do the morning pages, you brain dump, and you just journal. And I heard like Elizabeth Gilbert on Tim Ferriss' podcast talking about like basically the whole way Eat, Pray, Love came to be was because of the morning pages. Like things were coming out of her that she started exploring. So I thought, okay, well that's like there's something there, right? So I started doing it, and really like you're kind of like just excavating like stuff that's inside you. And I found that I started to get really nostalgic during the quarantine. I don't know about you, just places I had been before, like where I had grown up. Like it's like I'm like, whoa, I like can't access those places right now.
Yeah.
Just a lot of nostalgia was coming to me. And so I started writing.
I mean, I think the thing you say when you're mining and you're just coming up with a lot of things, that's another thing, because like I will talk to comedians and they'll be like, you know, I'm working on this now, and like later I'll start working on like my hour and my show, whatever. And you really do have to tell them like, you need to start mining the material, because like most of the material you write isn't gonna make it to your, I mean, it's gonna make it to your first show, because everything you write is gonna make it to your first show, and then you're gonna look back and hate it. But like when you actually have like a full hour you're proud of, it's gonna be because like you mined a whole bunch of material and then you like honed it and, you know, made it. But if you don't, but if you don't put it, you know, like on a page or on the computer, if you don't start bringing it out, at no point are you ever gonna be able to like start thinking, okay, I see like a connecting thread. I can see this becoming something bigger. So like I can see how this whole thing where like, you know, every day coming out with something new makes it so that you start finding more interesting things. Because like at first you might like be like, you know, like this is good, but whatever. But then as you like keep on mining, you know, you'll find more stuff.
Yeah, you don't know what's in there. Like you don't always know. Like you think you know, oh, okay, I'm just gonna think of this thing in this time, and like you really don't. So sometimes when I'm like working through a scene, I just like get out a page and I'm like, everything I remember about this thing, because most everything I'm writing is like really true. I'm just fictionalizing it.
Okay.
And then I just like, with no pressure that like I have to come up with like the most clever thing or this has to sound really good. It's just like, what do I remember? Like, what are the details? Like, what are the things? Like, what can I just like shake loose? And the thing with the morning pages is you commit to 3 pages, because normally you're going to sit down and write in a journal. You kind of like write until you think you're done. You're like, okay, done. But 3 pages like forces you to like keep going even if you don't know what to say. So you just kind of start like, it becomes stream of conscious, right? Yeah. And that's where some really good stuff is that you can discover about yourself. And then just for me to like process, like, what do I want? Like, what is this all about? Like everything that's going on in the world. It's just been like really intense. So that was that. And I never ever considered writing
but that's
fiction.
fantastic. Is this the first podcast you mentioned the novel in?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's kind of like having like a baby, like, you know, like women, they don't want to like say too early because you want to make sure it's going to be viable. But I think I'm at like 20,000 words now. So I feel like, okay, I think this is real. And I have an editor. So I'm like, okay, I think this is a real thing. I don't know, like, I don't have a plan for how it gets published yet. You know, it's a tough, you know, industry, but I think it's like you just create like creating something that means something to you. The going through the process of it is very transformative in itself. Yeah. And that is, for me, I think the most important thing, like when you're creating, if I'd say like, and I think that's where I found a lot of like tension as an artist, because before, like long ago, my first, you know, foray as an artist was in photography. And, you know, I took a bunch of classes in it, and I started a little photography business, and I was a photojournalist for a while. But like, it was under like this pretense of, I have to be a famous photographer.
Yeah.
Like, I have to be, you know, Annie Leibovitz. Like, I have to be that. And I was much younger. So when you're younger, you know, you get that real like star.
And you have this idea of like, yes, I'll just get
yeah.
like I'll start taking photos. Like next month, I'll be published in National Geographic.
Oh yeah.
Because how hard could it be? And then and then 6 months from now, I'm touring Europe with my new photo show.
And I had friends that were going to art school, and they were doing exhibits, and they seemed like they were such a big deal, and I was like comparing myself to them. And anyway, and honestly, I just got to the point where I just really didn't enjoy it anymore, because I put that pressure on it.
Yeah.
And so I thought, you know, with anything else, I end up, and like comedy too, the same way. It's like, it wasn't, I mean, there was like the idea like, hey, I actually enjoy this, and I think I'm pretty good at it. And there was like that idea like, where could this go? But never like, oh, I have to be like, everyone has to know my name.
Yeah.
You know, that's kind of like when the ego starts to just like, you know, drive the car.
And I mean,
and I'm like, let's not do that.
And I mean, it's great to have goals. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, if you're like, I want like an hour special somewhere, you know, like Netflix somewhere.
Oh, you do that.
It's great to have goals.
So funny.
Oh, thank you. But like, it's great to have goals. But I think if the goal is more important to you than like, for example, it's great to want to like, I want to have a published book. Well, that's amazing. But if you're not thinking, okay, what's going to be inside this published book? Like, is it a story, blah, blah. Then, you know, like, it's great that you have this goal, but what are you doing on a day-to-day basis in order to make it happen? And this thing with the pages sounds amazing. I've been trying to write 8 minutes a day. It's not
8 minutes, yeah.
Just 8 minutes of like, just sit down and pen and paper, which I find has been, I've been doing a lot more sketching too for my, like, for stuff. Like I've been like drawing stuff and not really caring what kind of drawing comes out. Like, it's not about like, this will be an art piece, but rather, you know, like, just sketch it out and see what happens.
Oh, you're good. You sketch it out to see what happens?
Yeah. Like, you know, you have this idea for like...
Oh, okay. Yeah. For like whatever comedy things in your mind. You just kind of see like where it's going to go. Exactly.
And kind of like just make, you know, it is very stream of consciousness.
It's like your shitty first draft.
Exactly. Basically.
Which you should do. That's the Anne Lamott thing. Like, that's what you do in writing, is like, you like give yourself permission for it to be like shitty at first. You're like, this is probably just gonna be shitty. And then from there, you can find like the little gems.
And it's really hard sometimes to admit this is your shitty first draft, because like sometimes you're like, no, this is great. This is fantastic. Like, I just wrote it, but it's fantastic. This is TV ready. And you're like, no, you need someone to tell you like, no, this is your shitty first draft. Work on it. Yeah. Yeah. The thing I love talking to you when this whole thing started, because like, for some reason we ended up having this, having to see a lot of conspiracy. I mean, they're still there. I just read another one, but my God, conspiracy theories. But they I think they like broke loose all at once, you know, like some of the YouTube videos that were coming out, and it was like all at once, and it was really a lot. I like, now they're just kind of trickling. They're like, oh, there's like kids in Wayfair containers. Like, but then it's like, then like enough people are like, like probably not. But I think in the beginning it was like, that's like that, like no one knew what was going on. So it was like, maybe it's this, or like, maybe it's that, or like, maybe we're like, and I think people were more, sometimes just like wanting things, like it's more interesting. If it was actually, if one of those theories were true, like actually it's like way more interesting than like sitting in your apartment for like the 40th day in a row, eating like the same cereal for dinner. Like that's a way more interesting thing, right? It is. Although you've been cooking more, I've noticed. On and off. I go through phases. Me too. Yeah. Me too. Yeah. I just take photos of the phases where I'm cooking. The rest of the world doesn't need to know about the other days where I'm just like, this is instant ramen and like, what's this? Pancakes? Yeah, I'll eat that too.
Yeah. I was like emotionally eating, so I was like I put a lot into the food. You know, I was like everything revolved around the food for like a few months, but now I'm pretty much vegan now. I mean, this is just a phase. Not forever, but I'm just trying to clean up my gut and I've like lost a little bit of weight. I told my friend, I've lost my quarantine baby weight.
I need to start getting on that.
Yeah, because it's like, it was like acceptable when we thought it was going to be like 2 or 3 months. Like now it's like, no, this is our lives. So I should probably like tighten this up a little bit.
I do social media for a sports retail store. So it's like sports, athletics and whatever. And like what they started doing from quarantine is like every day they have a different class. So it's like boxing or yoga or whatever. And so like I can't pretend people aren't doing exercise because like every day we have like 1,000 people from all over Mexico just like doing exercise with their trainers. And I'm like, no, don't do it. I'm convincing myself that no one's doing exercise. Stop. Don't show me I'm wrong. And you got a cat.
Yeah, I got a cat.
Is it a boy cat? Is it a girl cat?
Yeah, well, he's non-binary.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
He's woke like that.
Yeah, actually, I'm letting him decide. I'm just saying non-binary because I don't actually know how he identifies because he can't tell me. So I don't want to, identify him as a him.
Or place unwanted expectations.
I just don't know. I don't know. But I do mean that like this, I really honor the people how their pronouns. I take it seriously. And I thought about that a lot. I was like, oh, that's interesting. Like with pets, because we decide based on,
And there's people that take it super far. Like I remember one time they posted a photo of a dog and he had just come from like the hairdresser or whatever. So they put like little bows on his ears. And so he's like, oh my God, like our good boy, blah, 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 came back from the hairdresser and they told her like he was super well behaved and whatever. And one of the comments was a woman going like, I'm sure that he, with like capital letters, he doesn't appreciate the bows on his ears. And it's like, he doesn't care. He doesn't give a shit.
Yeah.
He's just glad the bath is over.
I've had like female cats, I've had male cats, and like for the most part, like after they get fixed, like their personalities are like really the same. So I've never,
I've seen a lot. I think a lot of things it was things we put on them. Like, I imagine my cat to be this kind of character. So no matter what they do, I like filter it through the lens.
Yeah, but man, the pets are holding on the fort in quarantine. Like, I don't know what we would be doing. They're just like, we're cool. Like, this is great for us. And that's like a good reminder to have around you, like another living being that's not freaking out. Even if it can't talk, you're like, okay. Like, they're just like, hey, life's cool. Everything's good. And you're like, okay, it's going to be okay. So I think that, for me, my cat's like an emotional support cat more than anything.
Me too. I mean, mine is somewhere over there. There we go.
Yeah, they're just like a ball of
comfort. That's what they are.
Yeah, they're like little teddy bears.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. So, yeah, but I think I think everyone just has to kind of like honor. Like, I think the rest of the year is really just going to be kind of a roller coaster, and there's a lot of ups and downs with it, and I think not like trying to force yourself to be like funny or creative, like it's fine, but also recognizing that it can be, if you're not like so focused on the outcome, like your creativity right now can be a space that you kind of like retreat into and get lost into, right? So when I sit down to write my novel, I'm not thinking about everything that's going on in the world. I specifically chose to write about a topic like that has nothing to do with like pandemic, or it's not sci-fi. Like some people can really get into that, but mine's like very much away. It's like kind of,
I will tell you that.
But it all relates, right? Like it relates because this is like a coming of age story. And a lot of the things that like I cared a lot about in my 20s and like really wanted to make a difference and wanted to like beat the system, and like the things that I like saw that like I wasn't okay with, and went through that real like rebellious time. And then like you get student loans and you get jobs, and like you have to like you just become an adult. And like now I feel like a lot of these things from like in the past was like, oh, like I was right, like you know, like we were right, like the
Yeah.
things that were like really screwed up, we were like, hey, like this stuff is really screwed up, like we don't want to be in the system. And then like the world was like, well, you kind of have to be in the system because you have no other option. And then it was like, okay, well, I don't really want to do it.
And
so now I'm like, it's all kind of coming apart, and I'm like, oh, so I'm kind of going back to that time. So it's like connected to this, but it's just like really, to me, like it's a great way to process and get and like reconnect to who I am and what I've always cared about.
I love that idea. No, I love that idea of like creativity, like not having a pressure of like you're in confinement, so now you are, you know, required to be like writing the next American novel, the next great American novel, but rather you can use creativity as a shelter space for, you know, like kind of like letting the world be out there and letting your inner world just, you know, focus on something else, which I like a lot, like, because like I hate that. Like right now there's a lot of like online comedy and whatever, and a lot of people writing like jokes about quarantine and a whole lot, but I feel like they always end up in the same places, you know, like, oh, the Facebook, whatever. And I think the people that some people tell you like you should be writing about like the like before quarantine, because like people, like things are changing, whatever, and like, and yeah, they're changing, but like you can still talk about like whatever restaurants and people will understand it. Like they're not going to start like bawling because like I haven't gone to a restaurant in weeks. No, so
no, I mean everything we're watching on Netflix is like, it's like, oh, that's the old world.
Exactly.
I'm like, oh, I but it's not like it's lost forever. What do you think, like what's the best comedy you've seen in quarantine that was created in quarantine?
the best comedy I've seen in quarantine, which was created in quarantine. That's a good question. I suppose I haven't really seen newer comedy. Like I've seen like I've been seeing a lot of like I've been catching up on stuff basically.
Okay.
So I really don't have anything in my mind. I've seen some great tweets, you know. But like there's been some in like guest hosts with Jimmy Kimmel. Namely Billy Eichner.
I want to check it out. Yeah.
Namely the monologue for Billy Eichner and Eliza Schlesinger.
Okay.
Those two. Eliza did like a great bit on cancel culture, like a great bit on cancel culture.
Oh, cool. I love her. Watch. Yeah, I saw they were on there, so I'll have to check them out. That's good.
Before we go,
I'm sorry. I've just really liked. I mean, I feel like Trevor Noah is just like,
oh, he's killing it.
You know, when he first came on The Daily Show, I was like, oh God, we're never going to be able to have like what we had with Jon Stewart. And it took me like a while to kind of warm up to him, but I'm like, holy shit. Like he's just, to me, like just owned it. Like with like, it's funny, but like it's the shit we need to hear. Like I'm literally like, please make sense of this for me, you know, right now. And I'm just like, I feel like he's just doing like amazing stuff. So
totally. No, I think he's done some great and I get that, you know, like it is changed, and it's like it's never going to be Jon Stewart, and it's fine because he is never going to be Jon Stewart, you know, but like it does take a while to like get accustomed to the new to Trevor Noah being there. So before we go, I did want to talk about like you have your own podcast, which is Who You Know.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I started it like 2 or 3 years ago, and I've always kind of wrestled with like, does this need to have more of a succinct theme? But it's really just like people I actually know that I think are interesting, and just like having real conversations with them. most of the people in my network are kind of like high performing, like thought leaders and artists and just, you know, people who have like a different approach to life and work, and have kind of been like trailblazers in their own regard. I got to get you on there. So yeah, I like to just kind of pick their brains and like have like those juicy, real conversations. I love podcasts because like it feels like I'm one of those people, if I'm in a coffee shop, I just like want to listen to everyone's conversation around me. And it just, podcasts feel like that. Like you can just drop in to other people's, like you can just be on a fly on the wall. And I really think it's a great medium. So
It is. It totally is.
yeah. So that's the podcast. I think I'm going to start talking more about writing and talking to like authors and, you know, because it's usually always like the thing that interests me the most is what I talk about. So
I mean, that's good. That's the same with this podcast, literally. Like
just kind of like ebbs and flows.
I mean, yeah. No, so like again, same. Like for this podcast, it's like I have some pretty interesting friends, and they're funny and they're cool. Like I can have them on a podcast. And it's also a great excuse to talk to you guys.
I know, it's like it's good. It's a good, because like when do you talk to people anymore? Except all the time on
and you're like, hey, let's talk, and they're like, yeah, sure. And you know, like it's like, you know, it takes forever to actually like you know, like set a time and date.
I know. I'm extroverted, but I get like really burned out on the Zoom, on the screen.
Me too.
Like I realized like at first I was like, let's do all the happy hours. And I was like connecting with people and texting. And I'm like, now I just really hit my limit for messages every day.
Yeah.
Oh, totally. That's a new thing. I'm becoming an introvert. Oh, this is happening to me. I used to be such an extrovert.
It's not that bad.
Like now I'm like, oh, now I understand the introverts. Like I think once, like we're all living in their worlds now. And I'm like, oh, like, I understand why you think you're better than us.
I've been trying to write this new. I've been like sketching this new bit, which is like you know, like at first I hated the idea of like you should find something like positive about quarantine, but it's like, you know, like there's nothing positive. You know, there's a pandemic going on. There's people dying out there, Kim.
Yeah.
But then like I realized it's like, you know, if there's one thing that makes me happy is when you don't have to go somewhere because that somewhere has, you know, to an event because it has been canceled. So in a way, I'm super happy because everything has been canceled.
That makes you happy?
Yeah. Because I get so stressed about going to events that like sometimes when they get canceled, the one exception is stand-up comedy shows. I love doing stand-up. But like, you know, there's like whatever. And I'm like, and it gets canceled. I'm like, oh no. And then I'm like, yes. And now it's like everything's canceled. Yes. Anywho.
Yeah, I'm like, I never have to go to a networking event again. Wow. So, well, what's your? Well, I have one more question for you. What what do you think of the like state of comedy right now and where it goes in the future? I mean, I feel like I've seen some creative stuff, and I'm hopeful. I don't really. I have not found my footing in it. Like, you know, I just haven't found that. But for you, I know you're doing a lot of like online stuff.
I am doing some online stuff. I haven't been doing a lot of live stuff, and I've been doing more improv than stand-up. I just feel so sad doing stand-up by myself in my house. Like it's just me with the camera. It's like there's a great comedian that said it in like, if comedy is an addiction, and like this type of comedy, like Zoom comedy, is basically a nicotine patch. Like. And it's, you know, it's kind of like that. So I haven't put my footing on it. So on the one hand, it is really tough because, you know, a lot of people who made the living of like doing shows, they're having a hard time and everything. But on the other hand, I've realized that we are like, the first I'm going to use is cross-pollinating a lot more because it's way easier to have like comedians from far away on your online shows. So like before, if you want, like I've gone to like a couple of shows in like, you know, American venues, and, you know, I don't have to go. I'm just here, you know, it's like, hi, you know, it's me. And then like I've seen a lot of shows where they have comedians from Colombia, from Venezuela, from blah, blah.
Oh, cool.
So So on the one hand, I feel that we are getting a mix of comedy that we wouldn't usually have, because we, like, you go to a show, you get the comedians from that city and like the big headliner from out of town, like that's it. So on the one hand, I think I am pretty, I'm pretty hopeful in that people who are talented are going to find a way to show off their talent one way or another. I mean, my Great Biglia has his podcast. So on the one hand, that's sad. But on the other hand, I really miss like a stage and people and just like, hey, what's up?
Yeah, it's a pretty incredible feeling, and performing with like a group of people is like, I think will be one of the like highest experiences of my life. And because like you're doing this thing that's really scary, but then like other people are doing it too, and you have this like respect for each other and this like level of encouragement for each other that the people in the audience or like your friends like can't really give you, you know what I mean? Because like they don't, it's like, oh, you know what that's like. And I think people who are willing to get up there, totally bomb, like, just put themselves out there like that, like that's a cool group of people. And I feel like we were just starting to really get momentum in Mexico City. Like
we were. So
and I really, I believe in the Renaissance. Like I believe it's gonna all come back. But those two shows were like just, one of the like I know I'll always remember those. Like,
and I have to
shows.
admit, we lucked out, because like it's not often that we get a group of like, I've been to a lot of shows with the comedians, like each one of them is their own shit, like they'll come in, do their set, basically leave right afterwards, and we really lucked out with Inappropriate Laughter. Like we were really getting like a really good comedy troupe going. And
it'll come back.
We
might be like 40 at the time when it comes back, and but we're gonna do it. We're gonna have a reunion show. I will be there.
We will. So Lacey, where can people follow you?
On Instagram, it's the Lacey Elizabeth. It's Lacey Elizabeth. You should know how to spell that. And you can find my podcast, Who You Know. It's on iTunes. And those are the best places. My website's laceyelizabeth.com if you want to like go there. But yeah.
Awesome.
Connect, share, like people sharing funny things, or like my podcast and like funny YouTube videos, not conspiracy videos, but funny like videos. That's my love language. So if you send me any of those, you'll be making me very happy.
I will send you one or two.
Awesome.
Okay.
Thanks so much for having me on.
Thank you for being here.
All right.
I'll see you. I hopefully will see you live soon.
Yes. Bye.
Bye.
So that was Lacey. Listen to her podcast, Who You Know. The links for that will be on the show notes. And remember, we are on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Anchor, and YouTube. If there's anywhere you want me to try to get my podcast on, just tell me. Usually I just need to put my RSS somewhere, and then that happens. Hope you enjoyed the interview. I will try to have another one of these in 2 weeks' time, and I haven't released another This Podcast Will Save the World in Spanish, but hopefully I will do that next week. Remember, you can support this show on Patreon and Ko-fi. The links for all of that are in my webpage, martinleonstandup.com. And I think that is it. Remember, I also had to have a podcast with my friend James Mendez called La Semanal, which you can follow on YouTube, or you can follow us on Instagram at La Period Semanal, or on Twitter and Facebook, La Semanal Show. We talk about news from the week, so that sometimes gets funny. And for everything else, the other ones, there's Fantastic, my fanfic podcast in Spanish. Another friend wanted me to start another podcast, and I'm like, I don't know, I already have so many, and I'm not really updating them as it is. But anyway, if that happens, I'll let you know. Have a fantastic week, and